Hi, in this video we'll work with the client-side numeric editor by Infogistics. Using the client-side jQuery plugin, you can take any HTML element like a div element and convert that into a numeric editor control. So let's get started. What I have in front of me is Visual Studio with a ASP.NET project setup. We're not going to use MVC, but we're going to just come in here and right click and say add a new item, and we'll create a new HTML page and call this igNumericEditor. Again, as you can see, it's a blank HTML page. First thing we need is the script and CSS references. So I'm going to come down to my scripts folder and drop the jQuery core, jQuery UI, and the Infogistics JavaScript files. Next, what we need is the CSS references. So in my content folder, I can grab this igui.min.css and the jQuery UI.custom CSS. So with these 5 references, the page is set up to now create and work with client-side code. So first thing I'm going to do here is that I'm going to create a couple of developments because we are going to demonstrate the numeric editor. The first editor, we're going to use it to display and work with age. In the other development, I'm going to ID it as temperature. So we'll get the input age and temperature input from the end user. And we can come back in our head section and start writing our script. So we'll use the jQuery onload function, which is going to fire as soon as the DOM is initialized on the client. And in here, we're going to grab the first editor, which is our age editor, and convert that into an igNumeric editor. And by doing that, it's going to take the age div element here and basically convert that into an input box, which is going to accept numeric data because we are using a jQuery numeric editor plugin from Infogistics. So once we're done with that, we can just set up our default options for the editor. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a null text because we're not going to assign any value. We want to prompt the user what this editor is for, so we're going to let the user know to enter your age. Then we'll set a min value of 16 so that we make sure that whoever is entering this form is at least 16 years old, and a max value of 70. So they cannot go beyond 70 in this input box. And since it's an age, the data mode option allows us to set the type of the numeric field. So we're going to set it up to be an integer, so they cannot enter decimal places or any other thing but a integer value in there. So we'll set up these 4 options for the age editor control. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste and kind of modify some of the properties with the temperature input. So we'll say the ID to be temperature, and again it's going to be converted into the numeric editor, and we'll say enter temperature here. We'll set the min value to be, let's say, -70, and a max value allowed is 130. And we'll remove the data mode property because by default it accepts double, and it's okay if somebody enters double value for the temperature. We'll also set a negative pattern. So if the temperature sign is a negative, we want to say we want to use a pattern for it. So let's say negative pattern, open parentheses n and close parentheses. Now what it's going to do here at runtime is that anytime it detects that there is a value in there is less than 0, it's going to use the pattern here. So it's going to replace the n by whatever number they entered in the negative area, and then any other literals that we add here, it's going to get added to the display of the value. Similarly, there's a positive pattern too. So if you want to have a positive pattern for the input field, then you can do that as well. So I'm going to right click and view this in the browser. Okay, you can see at runtime we have 2 different editor controls. One is for the age, so both the div elements are now input fields, and it says the null text you set was enter your age, and it displays that. And for the next other editor, it says enter temperature. So we can come here and enter age, let's say 50, and move off it. It accepts that. If I try to hit a decimal point, which I'm doing right now, it's not going to let me do that because we set the data mode type to be integer. If I come here and set a value less than 16, let's say a 10, and click off of it, it's going to jump to 16 because that is what our minimum value is. Similarly, if I try to enter any value greater than 70, it's not going to let me do that. So it's going to bring back to the maximum value that's allowed to be set on the editor control. Now for the temperature control, we had a minimum of -70 and a positive of 130. So if I'm going to set, let's say, -35 and move off the control, you'll see that it accepts that, but it changed the negative sign to it just removed it completely. Now the reason being that we set up a pattern on it, which was open parentheses, the number, and then close parentheses. So it's used that pattern, replace the end with the actual number, and displaying the value. So if I move back to a positive number here, let's say 40, it's going to just stick to that. And because we didn't set any data type on it, we can go ahead and put a decimal point and add other values to it if we wanted to. So again, in this quick video, you saw you can take any element on your HTML page and use the jQuery wrapper to convert that into a numeric editor by calling the igNumericEditor function. And then in there you can set up the options depending on your input needs. Thanks for watching.
Infragistics. On the web at infragistics.com.